All of us have something on a daily basis, it seems, to forgive, whether it's our current government, our family members, right? Ourselves in things that we think we should have been better at, our discipline, our coworkers, people on the road, our neighbors. I mean, you name it. There's a million things to forgive in a day. But the biggest aspects that we work on forgiving in this work is working through our past. There's several stages to forgiveness, right? There's several pieces of forgiveness. The first piece, in order to have forgiveness for yourself, right, and others, is you have to have compassion for yourself and others. You can tell the story and it no longer hurts. That is sort of it. Yes. Send a positive vibe for that person or situation. Yes. All of these are good answers, you guys. But how do you get there? Is what everybody asks me. How do you get there? Like, I understand forgiveness, Bernadette, but how do you really get there, right? And to really, Mandy, to really even fine tune what you're saying, you can tell the story. You're not telling the story anymore. You're telling a different story, right? It's when you've truly forgiven, that story that you were telling that was holding you in the place of unforgiveness and reaction and triggering and emotional blah, 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 it's reframed. It's changed. The story's different because your perception and understanding is different. So you tell a different story about the event. And you're no longer triggered and you're no longer angry, and you can, send love to that person, and it can't be poked at anymore, right? That's how you know you've forgiven. But really, truly, you can see why it was there and why you attracted it and what its purpose was in your life and in the other person's life. Then you're at a place of true forgiveness because there's nothing left, right? But love. That's how you really know. There's nothing but the love and acceptance and the acknowledgement that it was perfect as it happened and when it happened and why it happened. You have that full understanding. But the first quality that you need, write this down. Number 1, a heart of compassion. You have to choose compassion. Because without compassion for yourself and others, you can't go to the next stage. In order to have compassion, you are required to have empathy and love, right? You can't have compassion without love. So compassion is the first part, the first choice, okay? We can say I have compassion for the suffering of others and do nothing about it, right? I have compassion. I have compassion for people who want to kill themselves and do nothing about it. I have compassion for someone suffering and they're suffering right in front of me, but I do nothing about it, right? Compassion doesn't necessarily move me. What moves me? My empathy, my ability to feel and connect with what they feel and what they connect with, right? So we have to have compassion. It has to be fired up with empathy in order to forgive any event or any person. Then we have to have perception and perspective, not only our own, but using compassion and empathy, be able to see the event with as much information as we can possibly glean on a deep level, not a mental level, deep emotional, spiritual level. When we go deeper, we ask to go deeper. It's go beneath the surface. I want to know what's under the surface. Why did he say no? Why was he so controlling? Why was he so quick to strike me physically or say a mean word? When you go deeper and you get deeper with empathy and compassion, then you're trying to see it from their perspective, right? And you start to get into human psychology. Why do animals start to react the way they react, right? Why do pit bulls When pit bulls are the nicest freaking dogs, when they're not trained to be mean and go into the red zone, why do they go into the red zone? How are they trained to be mean? They abuse them. They terrorize them, right? They force them into fight or flight mode. And then they keep doing it until the dog's hair trigger, right? You can break it out of a dog who's been through it, attacked and brutalized in the fighting ring. Takes a lot of time, right? A lot of time. They do become very desensitized, and they just become hyper reactive. They become so high alert that now what is normal, a normal reaction where they can kind of gauge what's happening, everything's a threat and they react. Human beings aren't very different, right? As children, when we're abused, when we're put down, when we're bullied over and over and over again, right? We learn strategies for survival. We learn strategies to combat it, combat the loneliness, combat the bullying, combat the self-loathing that comes about because we actually believed what our abusers said. We become desensitized too, unfortunately, to the positive. And we welcome and we're used to and familiar with the negative. People that are highly abused or live in very dysfunctional environments, they go into that fight or flight mode too. So when we have things that happen to us, so-and-so won't be kind about this, so-and-so did this to me, and we tell those stories without ever going deeper than what happened and without ever trying to understand the heart of the matter. Why did that happen at that time? Why was I attracting it? Why was I there to learn from it, grow from it, or give something from myself to it? I'm pissed off. I'm never going to talk to them again, right? How many of you guys have done that? Or you start to go all black and white and you're like, it doesn't feel good. I'm not going to deal with it. And off I go. And you just start to judge the situation, and all forgiveness, all compassion leaves your heart and your mind. And now you got a freaking story to tell. And you tell it over and over again. And now it's embedded, right? I'm sure there are things within your lives, I know there still is within mine, that I haven't fully forgiven, because I can still tell the story of those events, even though I'm not triggered, even though my emotions are clear and I've released those. I have not released the story, so I have not really forgiven them. But as long as I hold that place of unforgiveness and I keep telling the same story, I'm holding myself prisoner, at least a part of me prisoner. I'm also holding them into a role that they have to play in my world, in my reality. They have to play. They have to behave that way, because that's the role I've assigned them in my mind, in my reality. So first thing we have to do, choose compassion. Then we need to tune into our own empathy. But we cannot do that until we actually perceive what is going on a deeper level, right? Why are they doing what they're doing? Why did they choose to do what they chose? Are they afraid of something? Is this just pattern behavior, ingrained behavior? Like they haven't grown past it and it's just their belief system? We have to take that other perception. Once we do, we can have empathy for them, and then we can reframe the story in a different place of understanding both your role and your place of where your ego got hooked, and their place and their ego where they got hooked, and why this thing played out. And then the last part of this, after you reframe it, is then you go through and you do the emotional release and the emotional healing, and then you send love. That's when you've truly forgiven it, and now you tell a different story.